Congratulations, that was clinic number one. Clinic number one covered putting, chipping, and the grip. We'll start with the putter. The putter is the most used club in the bag, and it has one flat side on the grip, right on the top face of it, which is a great place for your thumb. So when we grab hold of the putter, left or right-handed golfers would have the left hand on top, the right hand underneath it, thumbs on the flat spot. Now you don't have to hold this with a putting grip. You can put your hands on it any way that feels comfortable, as long as you're attempting to do the following. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to make a putting stroke. This is not a putting hit. There are no wrist releases in a putting stroke because, number one, we have to keep that putter head perfectly straight because direction is extremely important. So we have to hold the putter so that it goes back and through, and it's going to point that right at the hole, and that the face of that putter has to remain consistently squared. It cannot be moving around this way because you'll hit it offline and you won't be anywhere near the hole. All right, so what we try to do is we try to move the hands, the arms, the shaft of the putter, and the head of the putter in unison. You can see that it's all moving here primarily because my shoulders are moving just very slightly left to right, and that allows me to make a nice smooth putting stroke. All right, so most putters, when you look at the face of the putter, you'll see that there's some type of a line on it. Obviously that points at the hole. Your feet are going to be as wide as your shoulders. The ball, when we putt, will be just forward of center, and there's no movement in a body. So it was very analogous to it is very analogous to the grandfather clock in the foyer, in that if you imagine that your body was the cabinet, and you look at the front of the door here, and inside you see this mechanism coming down behind the glass, and on the bottom you see the pendulum. All right, so obviously the cabinet can't move. So as we stay stationary, head doesn't move, legs don't move, weight does not move. The only thing that moves is basically the shoulders are going to slightly rock back and forth, and what that's going to do, if your arms are held straight, it's going to give you a very smooth putting stroke where the head of the putter moves in unison with the hands and the arms. The ball is just slightly forward of center, and as you make the putting stroke, do not follow the ball. As you make the putting stroke, continue to look here and just listen for the ball to go in the hole, but do not follow it. If you follow it, there's a tendency for the face to open up a little bit and you start to miss putts to the right. The other thing you want to do with putting that we talked about is that there are two elements of putting to be a good putter, and that is the ability to have your direction correct as well as your distance control. And we said in the clinic that distance control is much more important than direction, in that the majority of professionals on the tour right now from 10 feet only make 38% of the putts. So as a beginner from 10 or 15 feet, you can't really expect to make too many. Infrequently, one will drop in. But in most cases, you're looking to roll that ball up close to the hole so that your second putt is only a matter of inches. It doesn't do any good to have great direction on it and hit it so far past the hole that you miss one coming back, because every one of these strokes that you take with this putter is worth the same amount as that long tee shot that you just hit down the middle of the fairway. So it's sort of like horseshoes and hand grenades, close works. You got to roll it up close to the hole, tap the next one in. And one of the things that you ought to be able to practice to do is to look at the hole while you're making your practice stroke. Look at the hole and just look at get a feel for the distance looking at the hole, and then try to make a stroke and try to determine what you think it will take in that stroke to roll the ball that far. If you don't have a feel for it, imagine if you were holding the ball and you had your arm to go back and forth, and you looked at the hole and you said, well, I wonder how hard I would have to let this ball go to make it roll that distance, and then roll one and let it roll to the hole, and you'll see how much of a motion is needed to move that ball from point A to point B. Now the reason is important. It's important because if you give it a visual look and then apply the stroke to it, believe it or not, that hard drive you have up here, which right now doesn't have a lot of golf shots in it, you're going to start putting golf shots in it all the time, it's going to mirror up the distance that you saw with the amount of effort you put into moving the ball that distance. And believe it or not, whether you're right or wrong, you're recording that in your hard drive. And what happens is that over time and practice, your stroke ability plus the visual will be stored. And so there's going to come a time when you're looking at a certain distance, believe it or not, that hard drive up there is going to give you the right stroke. The more you practice, the better you get at it. That's what you see when you see the pros on TV and you see them standing there and they're doing this before they make that putt. What they're really asking for is, let's give me that putt, because I know it's in there. Because all the practicing that they do. They're just trying to get that ball right up next to that hole and hopefully it drops in. But you have to have this predetermined. You do not want to wait until you're standing over the ball, take the putter back to decide how hard you're going to hit it at that moment, because you'll never get it right. So it has to be rehearsed. Okay, so the next thing we did after the putter was we did the chip shot. And in order to do the chip shot, we had to learn the golf grip. Now the golf grip basically is, if I had for my right-handed players, if I had my hand resting at my side and I simply dropped the club into it and I was to pick it up, most people pick it up, they pick it up correctly, which means that the grip of the club comes to rest underneath this bone in the base of your left wrist, right here, which means that if you held the club out and you held it up with only your forefinger, it would balance underneath that bone in the base of the pad on the bottom of your hand. So if it's falling out of back against your thumb like this, you don't have it in the right spot. So you got to get it underneath that bone, and your thumb will come to rest slightly on the right-hand side of the grip. Now your right hand, pinky rides over the forefinger and the middle finger, and that leaves 3 fingers at the first knuckle with the grip in the shaft to come across that first knuckle. Not here in the fist, but out in the fingers. Now when I roll my hand closed, my right thumb comes to rest slightly on the left side of the shaft. You'll see pictures in the email as well, and there's a description in the Word document at the bottom of this email that goes through this in pretty good detail as to how you get your hands back in this position. But suffice it to say, as I said in the clinic, if you put your golf grip on it and it feels comfortable, you're probably holding it wrong, because the golf grip initially when we begin the game does not feel comfortable. But it's necessary in that your hands have to complement one another, and if they're pretty much facing one another when you hold on to it, that means that they can work together to help you as you start to make your golf swing. If they're in conflict because they're not facing one another, now your hands are fighting one another and it creates all kind of problems with your arms, and it hasn't been proven over history and over time that anything works better than this golf grip. So we got to go with that one. This is a proven way of making the golf swing. Okay? Now the chip shot, you said by definition, when do we chip, Bob? And I said, well, we chip when we can't putt. So obviously if my ball came to rest right here on the edge of the green, I would putt it. But if the ball is anywhere back 5, 10, 15 yards back and there's a lot of heavy grass to go through, obviously you can't putt it. So you have to hit a small shot that gets a little bit airborne and then rolls to the hole. But remember, the reason you're in the chipping area here, which off the green someplace, is because you missed the shot into the green. So this actually is your first putt. So we're trying to be very accurate with this. So we're going to use the mechanics of a putt, but a club that has loft. Now the loft is the angle on the face that you see here. And when we strike this ball on the way down, we're not trying to hit it up, we're trying to strike it on the way down, and the head comes down and hits the ball, the loft on the club, the ball will spin backwards off the loft, and that will make it go up in the air slightly, and then down on the ground, and it'll roll out. So as we practice it, you could become much better at controlling the distance, which obviously is the major part of this, trying to get it close to the hole. So the way that we set up for this is similar to the putt, except that we put our golf grip on it. Instead of having our hands line up with the head, our hands are a little bit more towards the target. So for right-handed players, that means that my hands move a little to the left. So there's a little bit of an angle in between the shaft and my right forearm. That little bit of an angle stays there because we're going to use pretty much the same kind of stroke. You can see this stroke very much resembles the stroke that I made when I did it with the putter. Now the secret to this shot is the weight distribution. So what we do with this shot is put our grip on it, we put our hands a little bit forward of the head, feet as wide as our shoulders, and now I'm going to lean forward from my chest, my head. I'm just going to lean a little bit to the left. When I lean a little bit to the left, no bending of the knees, I just lean to the left. That means that if I lean to the left and my hands are a little forward of the head, when I take this club back, if my head stays still, this head of this club is going to come up. It's not going to go along the ground, it's going to come up just a little bit. And that little bit that it comes up, when I return it to the ball, it's enough of a descending blow to make the ball go up with the head of the putter. Now, we do not try to help it up. In other words, the head of this club never passes your hands in the stroke. And this is what the majority of people struggle with during the clinic, is trying to get out of swinging this end. All we're trying to do is keep this angle between the shaft and the forearm exactly the same. Let the shoulders turn, and let the setup with the forward tilt to the left. You stay in that position, keep your hands slightly ahead, very soft back, very soft forward, and here's what you get. Chip shot. And it's not a hit. Once again, it's more of a stroke. It's like the putter with a different club. So that's what we covered, and I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, obviously you have my email, and send me an email or call me, or I can see you at next week when we take up the swing. We start with irons. We'll start on the driving range side, and we'll start to learn how to hit irons from a half swing into a full swing by the end of the next clinic. Thanks. It was a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you next week.